Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at example number 3. So if you want to pause the video, go ahead and you can go ahead and read through that and make any notes that you need to or underline anything you think is important. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is we're eventually going to want to try to set up an estimate of the population proportion of people who said they voted. I wonder if people are lying about whether they voted or not. So we need to check the conditions to make sure we can set up that interval. Now, let's write down a few things. A little bit different about this problem is, right away, we have to calculate p-hat because it says in the sample, 701 people out of 1,002 said they voted in a recent presidential election. The 61% here is the actual value. That is what rho is. Now you're saying, okay, so we know how many people voted. Well, we're wondering what's the population proportion of people who said they voted. So this right here, the 61%, we're not going to use quite yet. We're going to use these two to calculate what p-hat is. So p-hat is equal to 701 people said they voted out of 1,002. So that would give us approximately, and I'm going to round this because it's pretty darn close to 0.70. And n is equal to 1,002. Now, let's check the conditions. First of all, it said that somewhere in here it is a simple random sample, so that holds. Okay. We got to check to make sure that our sample size is less than 10% of the population. So what would the population, the lower value of the population have to be in order for us to be less than 10%? 10 times 1,002 equals 10,020 adults, or I should say in this case, voters. Now again, we don't know if this is a national poll or if it's who the population they're trying to estimate here is. But we're going to, again, go ahead and assume that there are more than 10,020 voters in the population. For instance, just saying this, if this was a statewide poll, there's obviously more than 10,000 voters in the state of Nebraska. If it's a national poll, there's millions of voters. So that would mean that, yes, our sample is 1,002 would be less than 10% of the population. And then finally, we got to make sure that, again, we have a normal distribution here, approximately normal. N times p-hat, that would be 1,002 times 0.70, which is approximately 701. That is larger than 10. And then, oops, it's not another, it's still the same requirement. N times 1 minus p-hat is 1,002 times 0.3. And that would give us 301, which is also greater than 10. So again, all three conditions are met. So we can proceed. It's okay to proceed. It's okay to calculate that interval. So B says, go ahead and construct a 90% confidence interval for the proportion of people who say that they voted. So if we do this, again, just rewriting a few things down, we said p-hat was equal, we calculated that to be 0.0 or 0.7. N, the sample size is 1,002. Now, since it is a 90% confidence interval, then our critical value should be, I believe, 1.645. Again, you can either get that off the table that in a preceding slide, or go ahead and go to your ArtistStat app to figure that out. So then we can go ahead and calculate this. It's p-hat plus or minus our critical z value times our standard error. So again, if we calculate, p-hat was 0.7 plus or minus 1.645. times 0.7 times 1 minus 0.7, which would be 0.3, all over 1002. Now, again, as we go through this, this again is part B. If we go through this then, calculate your standard error first. And that would be 0.0144769, yada, yada, yada. Again, that number right there, that is your standard error. And then if you take that times your 1.645, your critical value, you would get 0.0238145. And that right there is, if we had to find or were asked to find it, that's your margin of error. So again, using that margin of error and subtracting it from or adding it to your p hat, your point estimate, and rounding to 3 significant digits would give you this. 0.676 is less than rho, which is less than 0.724. So that, somewhere the true population proportion of adults that say they voted should fall within those two intervals.